That's one thing you can't deny. I give you all that I own. That's one thing you can't deny.
As I got another rhyme, another rhythm for y'all to listen. I'm never quitting on my mission. I'ma roll with what I'm giving. Got some ambition, this new edition, filling positions. Looking at the void in myself and feeling what's missing. Better watch the way you going, better go in the right direction. In the moment you stressing, but you gon' be counting blessings. And I know that for certain. Keep on working, open curtains. Haters swerving, cause they ain't ready for your final version. Whoa. I'm never gonna give up. Fall down, I just gotta get up, yeah. Cause this is my road. Lights, camera, action, I'm ready to go. I'm never gonna give up. Fall down, I just gotta get up, yeah. Yeah, this is my road. Lights, camera, action, I'm ready to go. Way too long, we faced them storms. Now you gon' face the dawn you waited for. I said from night to dawn, I right my wrongs alone.
You're listening to the Tom Ficklin Show on WNHH LP 103.5 FM, your home for community radio.
That voice you heard was Harry, our station manager. And Harry, good morning to you, and Happy New Year to you. I think this is, I haven't seen you since the last millennium. We really have the pleasure this morning of having Reverend Esau Green with us, pastor of New Antioch Church of God in Christ. And Jill Dotlo is here with us, and we're going to talk about some 2020 astrological visions. But I asked Esau to join us for the first 5 or so minutes to kind of share an exciting event that's taking place in February. There's so much always controversy about how churches are contributing and giving back and being a part of the community. But I really like, Esau, you're celebrating your 5th year, I believe.
We are currently in our 4th year.
Our fourth year.
5 years will be July.
And so this is the year of your 5th year in July. And so there's churches. Some people will be sarcastic and talk about churches popping up on every corner. And I could really care what you think about that. But this church has popped up 4.5 years ago. And Esau, in spite of just a short duration, is really making a commitment to New Haven. And you're going to hear more about New Antioch Church of Christ, Church of God in Christ. But in February, you have what's happening. Something that's really that strikes me as really important when we talk about student loans and access to higher education, et cetera.
February 8th, we'll be having our first scholarship banquet at Fantasia of North Haven. The banquet will be serving dual purposes. One, to help provide financial assistance to inner city students, and as well as the development of Antioch House. Antioch House will serve to provide shelter, training, and recovery for women and children.
Now at the Antioch House, that's a new one, and you hadn't shared that with me. You got your visions and dreams kind of coming up. I love that. Give us the date again.
February 8th. The program will be at 6:00. We'll be honoring educators who have spent decades committing their lives to the education of our children. We'll have honorees from New York City, the greater metropolitan area, New York City, and of course our very own here in New Haven.
And I believe your keynote speaker is Mr. Michael Green, perhaps?
Dr. Michael Green. He was educated here in the city of New Haven. He's gone on to be a noted author, pastor, civil rights activist, and he's actually my first cousin.
All right.
One of my many mentors.
Yeah. I mean, and that's the key in terms of 2020 and creating perfect vision and proactive kind of a dedication to what our future might be. And that's why Jill's here with us also to kick off today, Jill Dotlo. For tickets, I mean, this is a fundraiser, and we want to talk about how I think there's 1 or 2 young ladies or potential students that you either have in mind or that have stimulated this vision. But how can people secure tickets and sponsorship and ads, et cetera?
As was posted on, you can secure tickets through Eventbrite. Just go to New Antioch celebrates HBCUs, or you could utilize our New Antioch Cash app. And if you're used to snail mail and doing things in that manner, you could mail a donation or your ticket payment to New Antioch Church of God.
Perfect. And you mentioned that is it appropriate to mention the young lady's name, or that kind of gave you this vision and this stimulation to kind of do this event?
Oh, absolutely. I've spoken to her and have her permission to share her story.
Mm-hmm.
What happened was, as a young church, we had our very first young adult go off to college, and she came home because her family was going through some financial hardships. And while she was home visiting a friend, it really hurts me.
No, but sure.
She was visiting a friend, and some young men came by and shot the house up.
Yes.
And I prayed. I sought God. I said, Lord, how can I help?
Mm-hmm.
And thankfully, the relationships that I've developed down through the years, and with the Alumni Association of Norfolk State, one of my great friends, Tanya Giddens, said, Esau, you know people, let's have a banquet, raise some money.
Good.
And this being our first venture into this, we're looking to help as many young people as possible.
Yes.
What some may think is insignificant. I can remember being in school all the way down in Virginia, and at nighttime when the front of your stomach is touching the back of it, and not really having the financial resources to basically get by. So we want to sow into our young people. We want to know that, let them know that when they're going off to school, that they have some people back at home who's going to be looking out for them.
Tremendous. And Esau, again, just share with people as we conclude how they can kind of secure tickets, purchase tickets, get the date, because this is so important in my mind. We know about the New Haven Scholarship Fund, and various fraternities and sororities have scholarship funds, etc. But there's not enough of it. There's always going to be somebody left behind, and this year, 2020, has to be the year of not leaving people behind, in my opinion. So again,
absolutely. You could purchase tickets through Eventbrite, Norfolk. Let me get this correct. New Antioch Church of God celebrates NSU and all HBCUs.
Tremendous.
And or you could utilize the New Antioch Cash App, which is Cash App New Antioch COG. New Antioch COG.
Is there a telephone number that you can leave as well?
Yes, you could also contact us through 860-575-6960 with any information that you may need.
And let's conclude, Esau, with on a Sunday, people might want to kind of check you out on Sundays. How do they go about that? In person?
Well, you can come and see us on any given Sunday. We have our 1 o'clock worship experience at 94 Webster Street, New Haven, Connecticut, right across the street from the Elks Club parking lot.
Indeed.
So come in and enjoy the Lord with us.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for having me.
Yeah. We'll make it happen again. And, we hope to be there and kind of help with the promotion. It's just so important, everybody, for the year of 2020. We want to have perfect vision for 2020, but we also want to support one another any and every way we can, by any means necessary.
Okay.
Thanks, Esau.
Have a great day.
All right. Jill Dotlo is here. And the reason I asked Jill to kind of be here as well, and you heard Esau kind of talk about how we can commit yourself to something early in February. But let's commit ourselves every day, 24/7, 365 to something. And Jill's going to talk about, from the astrological vision standpoint, how this science, it really is a science. It's a science of hypothesis, then it's a science of confirmation, and it's a science of continual interpretation. So, Jill, good morning.
Good morning.
We have listeners actually in Australia, although that's kind of a bad thing because with the fires, et cetera, in Australia.
Terrible.
But it is tomorrow in Australia. So we have listeners worldwide and throughout the United States, for that matter. What are we going to talk about today?
Well, first of all, I want to say Happy New Year.
Happy New Year.
And the way you just encapsulated astrology was really brilliant. I might plagiarize.
Absolutely. Please, this is the year of giving and sharing and reciprocity. Absolutely.
Because I would probably say the same thing, but I wouldn't be quite so pithy. And you summed it up. In fact, it is a science. It did start 5,000 years ago, and it was with the Babylonians. and only the priests were the ones who would use astrology. Not the priests. The priests would follow the trajectory of the planets for hundreds of years, and then they would correlate things that were going on Earth, and they would say, well, the last time this happened, the corn crops were good, or the last time this happened, we had a famine. So for hundreds of years, when you watch it, they were able to come up with what the planet's effect was and what they were doing. And then the person who really used it was the king. And the king would come to the priest and say, well, I'm thinking of going into battle tomorrow. So what do you think? And they would say, well, the last time Mars was conjunct Jupiter, we lost a lot of men in battle, but the corn crop was very fertile and plentiful. So in fact, that's correct. It's a science, and but it's an art also, because it's like medicine. I'm going to liken it. You might have a pain in your abdomen. They don't know right away what it is. Maybe it's gas. Maybe it's your gallbladder. Maybe it's your appendix. They have to look around and figure out what it is. And so with astrology, it's not like a psychic. I can't tell someone, oh, you're going to meet a tall, dark, handsome guy in a coffee shop next door in about 3 hours. But I could say, well, this is an excellent time for relationships for you. Or it's a terrible time. Don't get married. Wait. So yeah, you're constantly tweaking and you're constantly observing.
Yes.
And there's many ways that energies can work, the planetary configuration, depending on what the person themselves are doing in their life.
Yes.
So when I say nothing is fated, but sometimes I think certain things are fated, like whatever, a terrible car crash, something that was no fault of your own. You were driving, some guy crossed the divider, But other things in our life, we actually can take a hand in and decide how we're going to use those astrological energies to our benefit, and be sure and kind of stay away from the negative behavior that might be associated with it, which could bring on us bad things.
And Jill, just for people that really appreciate that introduction, for folks that just might be tuning in and you're listening to Jill Dotlo, and this is the Tom Ficklin Show. For folks that might not be able to listen for the duration of the show, but it still might be teased with what you've mentioned thus far, how can folks reach out to you, be in touch with you, kind of take advantage of your wisdom?
Got it. It's a good question. So I guess maybe email might be the best way to do it. And my email would be j.dotlo. That's my name, Dotlo, D like David, O-T as in Tom, L-O, at sbcglobal.net.
Tremendous. and Jill, the reason I was so excited to have you here for our first show in this New Year's, some things are happening.
Oh man, I think
so. So tease us. Give us a clue. After listening to today's show, you may not be convinced. You may not be certainly maybe mystified. You may be intrigued. You may be kind of challenged. But let's talk about some of the things from your perspective as you see this life experience.
Okay. Well, this is a very, very hot topic, shall I say, for astrologers. They've been waiting for this period of time for, I want to say, a couple of years, because of what is happening in the heavens right now. And actually, it's been happening. Planetary energy just oftentimes doesn't, spin on a dime. Sometimes it's something that you can see, and you can see it coming. With other planets, it does, like it's a volcano, or it's an earthquake, or it's, something that's sudden. But Saturn, Pluto is the hot topic. Saturn, Pluto are two planets that are, I'm going to call them malefics. They're very heavy duty. They move very slowly. So when they are present, they're weighty and their effect is profound. Unlike the sun and the moon, which moves very rapidly in their rotations. So the slower planets have more influence in our lives and globally. And you and I were chatting before we came in, and I was saying, if you just want to see what's going on astrologically, all you got to do is watch the news, because it's a global thing. It affects everybody, and as we can see right now, it is.
So the impeachment is one indication.
Well, yes, and so let me just say, I'll set it up a little bit in the fact that Saturn rules government. Saturn rules restrictions. Saturn rules obstacles, delays. Saturn is reaping as you have sown in our lives. It's the teacher. So if we veer off, we get our hands slapped. Pluto was first discovered when they invented the atomic bomb. And so they liken the influence of Pluto to that. It's the ruler of Scorpio, and it means sometimes complete devastation in order to be able to rebuild something.
Got to bring us up now, Jill, quickly. So I know we're in this potential dystopia period, but the optimist in life is doomsday coming tomorrow? I mean, help me out here, Jill.
Well, it looks like governments in general are really subject to a complete overhaul, and perhaps this is something that's been coming for a while, and now this particular Saturn-Pluto conjunction, which has been in effect for the last year or almost 2 years, as they've been coming together, is going to be exact January 12th.
January 12th of this year. In a few days.
In like, yeah.
Okay. So
wait, but wait, there's more.
Right, there's more.
There's an eclipse. And an astrological eclipse is always like a huge exclamation point with whatever's going on. So an eclipse is a thing that finally pushes people to do this, that, or the other thing. And that eclipse is this week. It's a lunar eclipse, and it's hitting that Saturn-Pluto point.
Okay.
So it's an exclamation to the Saturn-Pluto, which is probably why Trump did what he did with Iran. Just a few days ago, because that was really
so for folks that are thinking that we're kind of talking that this is a bunch of malarkey, and you may not have heard that word malarkey for the last 15, 20 years, or I'm dating myself, but a bunch of sh whatever.
BS.
For someone that is an agnostic, doesn't believe in this at all, what would you tell them in terms of their harmony, how they should order their lives for the next week or so, in terms of their relationships, in terms of their behavior,
it's far beyond the next week, just as we've been experiencing for the last year or so. By the way, I'm just going to say that Trump himself is getting hit by this Saturn-Pluto the hardest.
Yes.
I mean, it's opposing his planets, his personal planets. So the impeachment came as no surprise. But I think what we need to do is, because even I, as an astrologer, see this stuff and I get a little crazy.
Yes.
Right.
Yes.
And I think you just need to center yourself and ground yourself and just recognize the good within yourself.
So does that mean affirmations? Does that mean yoga? Does that mean prayer? Does it mean?
I think all of those things. Whatever fits the bill for you. Life will go on. I don't think this is the end of the world, but I do think it's a reshuffling.
Well, we certainly see with Brexit and here in the United States and in South Africa and South America.
Yes, and I think that, stirring up the pot, it's a hornet's nest, and we don't have any control over that. There's nothing we can do about it. So the best thing to do, I think, is to find your spiritual self, find your grounding. If you do that through exercising or yoga or meditation or whatever, you can't get caught up in it, but it's fascinating to know.
And how long will the impact last from your standpoint?
Well, I believe that what has been set in motion will be lasting for a while. I mean, I don't think
a year, 2 years, 10 years.
I would say, a year, 2 years, 10 years. It depends on how
that's a little open.
How people behave. Well,
so elaborate on that term. So our behavior, you're suggesting, can impact outcome or results.
Well, yeah. Look at what Trump just did. I'm sorry to keep going back to Trump, but that's a focal point that we all can relate to. I can tell you about my own personal experiences, but who cares, So,
but each individual's personal. Each of us are an agent of change. You're suggesting, or
totally. We're all in charge of what goes on, and what people do and what they don't do is an agent of change. The whistleblower, quote unquote, was an agent of change. and this call that that Trump just made, and I don't want to make this all about Trump, but I'm just saying that his behavior, certainly as our president, whenever you look at a company to see how a company is going to be doing, you always look at the president's chart, because so goes the president, so goes the company. And the president of the United States is certainly no different. And the United States is a Cancer, 4th of July.
So you're saying that even the date that institutions or businesses or nations were established they have an astrological chart as well?
They have a birth chart.
A birth chart?
Everything has a birth chart. The day you started your job has a birth chart. The day you got married has a birth chart. Certainly the day you were born, that's your astrological chart down to the exact time and so forth. But with the United States having Cancer on the ascendant, that puts Capricorn, which is where the Saturn-Pluto is falling, and the 7th house is relationships. So if you look at the relationships that the United States has right now, that's what Saturn-Pluto is affecting. And, it's wanting.
There's a lack of something.
Yeah, there's a big lack with our relationships, right?
Okay.
I mean,
a
we've
lack of
seen
love,
it.
lack of health, lack of
we're
equity.
alienating people. We're alienating countries. We're, all the stuff that we've been seeing, and is not getting us a lot of friends out there globally.
You were kind enough as I came into the studio this morning to be jotting notes. So after this weekend, give us a little sneak peek, down the road. Give us some highlights.
Okay, well there are certainly good things happening in individuals' charts. We're looking at what's going on in Trump's chart, and we're looking at the United States, and of course so goes the president. A lot of stuff is happening to him. But for each of us individually, 2020 can be a fabulous year. It really just depends on what you have been doing, because remember, Saturn is reaping as you have sown. So if you've been working hard at something and keeping up with it and dotting the I's and crossing the T's, Saturn loves that. And so
you're saying Saturn's like Santa? Have you been good?
Oh, hell no. Saturn's Saturn is not like
I guess
Santa.
Because Santa says, have you been a good person?
Well, that's Jupiter.
Okay.
The good luck planet is Jupiter. And actually, Jupiter's in Capricorn right now, too. So there could be some good stuff happening with Jupiter, but Jupiter sometimes just expands things.
But so not to get you off the track. So back to Saturn. Then.
Yeah. Well, Saturn, we all have Saturn in our chart somewhere, and Saturn is in the part of our chart where we had to learn things. Maybe we abused money. Maybe we didn't save, and we didn't take, account of our money, and then our car got repossessed, or we're living in substandard because we didn't know how to manage it or how to work or whatever. So that would be Saturn there. Maybe you're in a relationship where it's just not working, and you're out doing things you shouldn't be.
But why does this year stand out in that regard versus just life in a year that you're on the planet in terms of responsibility?
Well, because because Saturn is in its own sign, in the sign that it rules, Capricorn.
So it's feeling powerful.
It's feeling powerful, and it's got Pluto right with it. I mean, Saturn and Pluto. When I look at a person's chart, at their astrological chart, their natal chart that they were born with at the moment and day they were born, there's 10 planets that we primarily look at. There's many more, but we look at 10, and I call those the board members of your life. And each board member has an agenda. And if those board members get along with each other and are harmonious, then you're someone who's going to have a really relatively easy life. It's never completely easy for anybody. We've all got our shadow. We all have our challenges. But there are people who you go, geez, that guy can't catch a break.
So is Saturn the chairperson of the board from your standpoint? Or?
Saturn is a board member.
Equal board member, but or more.
And he and Pluto, another board member, are in synergy right now because they're in the same degree of the same sign. They're kissing cousins, and Saturn is reaping as you've sown, and Pluto can be, destruction. It's if you haven't been doing what you should be doing in another year, you might just get a slap on the hand. Let's say you were speeding or something. I'm just using this
But
as an example.
This year you could be in an accident and kill somebody.
But yeah, or maybe they'll give you a ticket. But maybe this year they stop you and they're like, okay, that's like 3 DUIs. You're going to jail now. That would be Pluto. Okay.
So if you're a mother or a father and have a young person, what would you how would you translate this advice to them in terms of this year? What would you tell a 10-year-old or a 15-year-old or even 21-year-old?
I would just tell them the same thing I tell everybody. Just try to be your best self.
Mm-hmm.
Be kind. Be conscious of what you do. That's all we can do.
So the Marianne Williamson kind of thing. You loved her. You loved her campaign.
I didn't.
You did not. Okay.
I didn't think I didn't really pay too much.
In terms of emphasis on love.
I didn't pay too much attention to her, to tell you the truth. These are basic tenets I think that we could pick up with the Reverend who was just here.
Yes, Esau Green.
And with really, from time immortal. It's like what, the best thing to do is really just to be your better self. Where are you going to get, not being your better self,
So if we have these 10 commandments of life, or the Egyptians have a book of Mot, M-A-A-T, which has 45 kind of prescriptions, and we know about Moses. Why is astrology then still, what is astrology saying to us today that it hasn't said before, or that we can't find in other wisdom texts?
Well, it's interesting because astrology 5,000 years ago was simply telling people when to take action. Do I go to war or do I not go to war? It wasn't until really the 1900s, the early 1900s, that astrology began to take on a more psychological aspect.
Fascinating.
Because that was when Freud, the subconscious, things we couldn't see,
and Jung
became all the rage, or was uncovered, or entered into the mainstream. So with astrology, you can't really see it. I mean, you could see the stars, but why does that work? Oh, that's nonsense. But people began to more or less start to believe astrology at that point in time because we applied it to individuals. It was no longer something
you work with individuals
that the kings used. It was for the everyman.
Every man. You listen to the Tom Ficklin Show, and I wanted to start off 2020 with some vision making and wishing everyone a 2020 year of perfect vision and actually discernment as well. So if folks want to again reach out to you, do you counsel clients? Do you work with clients individually?
I do work with clients, and I'm thinking maybe my Facebook page is the best place to go to. I'm Jill Dotlo. I'm the only Jill Dotlo there is.
Amen.
in existence.
Amen.
So
tease us some more in terms of not sell us, but just try to share with us again why this tool is really important and health. It has a utility.
Yes,
it has, and so. For this year, 2020, not that you're predicting what's going to happen, but talk to us about anything you want. The Democratic nomination, whether the fires in Australia are indicative of things, whether the Amazon fires are indicative, whether the climate issue in terms of people understanding that the Earth is that we're killing the Earth. I mean, how does that relate to some of your?
Right. Well, I call myself a practical astrologer, and that means I'm practical.
Okay.
Many astrologers who are excellent speak in esoteric terms about things. I mean, if you go in and look at astrologers, they may all be saying something and approaching it from a different angle.
Yes.
And my angle is, okay, I'm practical. What can we do about this?
All right. So give us an example.
And I just want to say that I started with astrology because I have a degree in psychology. And it was while I was studying in college that astrology came into my vision.
Yes.
I had a roommate who said, "Hey, Jill, do you know anything about astrology?" And I said, "Not really. I know I'm a Scorpio. That's about it." She said, "I think you'd be interested in this." So she gave me a book. She's like, "Here, read this book." And in fact, I was riveted. I became obsessed. I would be up till 3:00 in the morning reading this because it was so amazing how accurate it was. And it explained me as a Scorpio, which I'd always had a hard time figuring myself out. Now I'm reading a text that's telling me, oh, this is why I behave this way or this is how I feel and so forth. So I, right then and there, said, this is really what I wanted to know. I went to get a degree in psychology, but that degree did not tell me what I wanted to know. That was about schizophrenics and catatonics and sociopath. No, I wasn't really. What I was interested in, Tom, was why are you different than me?
Yes.
Because, as growing up and as a kid, and I was still a kid when I was in college, I think, well, why did that person do that? I wouldn't do that. That wasn't nice or whatever it was. And then so understanding is the thing I take away from astrology. Understanding. Why does this person act that way? Oh, it's because, and it gives me understanding. Understanding is compassion many times, but also it lets me see what's coming.
Interesting. So I meet with you. I call you up as a client. I ask you to do doing the chart. Is that the proper vernacular?
Yes.
So you do my chart, and then I walk away with what?
You walk away with valuable information.
Mm-hmm.
It depends on the person and what you want to know.
Mm-hmm.
Are you dating somebody and you want to know, are we a good fit? That's something I can look at and say, well, you guys fit this way, but this is going to be a challenge for you. Or mother and children. I don't understand. I have such a problem with this one. I can look and go, oh, well, that's because probably this and this. Am I going to fix it? Not necessarily, but at least if you understand what's going on, you can approach the situation in a smarter fashion. And also just, most of my clients come say, okay, what's going to be happening in the year ahead? Is it I had a fellow yesterday who has been seeing me for decades. And
he's a slow learner.
Well, every year is different.
Every year is all right.
Every year is different.
I like that.
And so he wants to know what's going to go on this year.
So let's.
In his business.
I don't want to interrupt you, but when you say every year is different, and again, we understand I'm perhaps bombarding, and we're perhaps bombarding people with information. But again, people can reach out to you. How again?
You could get me on my Facebook page, Jill Dotlo, Dotlo.
Great. And so when you say every year is different, elaborate on that a little bit, because again, I think we have sometimes a challenge with recognizing that every year is different, but we still sometimes feel the same, or it could be just the same challenges that we're not able to overcome. So we don't see change, but we do see fatigue and depression and lack of enthusiasm about changing things. So every year is different. Clarify that a little bit.
Well, when I see a client, I use their natal chart, which is always the same. It's the chart when they were born, the moment, the time, the geographical location when they were born. That's the starting point. But then to see what's going to happen this year, those planets have continued to orbit, in the heavens. And they all have cycles. Some of them have a 30-day cycle. Some of them have a 12-year cycle. Some of them have a 30-year cycle. They all cycle and they all rotate at different frequencies or whatever. And this is impacting your chart, my chart, everybody's natal chart. So planets end up being in different houses of our chart. Houses are the different areas. It's like a pie. Our horoscope is like a pie with 12 pieces. One piece is our career. Another piece is our health. Another is our relationships. Another is our money, our children, friends. Everything in life is encompassed somewhere in that horoscope. And when a planet like Uranus, which is the unexpected, moves into a new sign like it just moved into the sign of Taurus, depending on what house it's in your chart, there will be changes there. And so, and we learn. The older we get, we learn. So we shouldn't be repeating.
Argue that next show.
We shouldn't be repeating the same stuff over and over.
Should not, but some people do.
Well, we all have it. Some things are harder to learn or harder to let go than others.
You're a good teacher. All right.
Yeah.
So I could move from being an introvert to an extrovert. You're saying could it be that dramatic?
Well, you're a closet extrovert.
I mean, not me. I was just mentioning, just as a general. We're not going to get too personal here.
No,
but you can use me as an example.
Yeah, I want to use you as an example.
All right.
But just because I
Let
thought
the record show I allowed this to happen.
Yeah, just because this was an interesting thing. Tom's always styling whenever I see him. He always has a really great presentation. So he came in today and he has this beautiful, like a Celandine green, and then another green sweater underneath. It's just really. And then I said, "Wow!" I said, "You look fabulous in those colors." And then he revealed underneath all this muted, beautiful green is a canary yellow polo shirt, which you couldn't see until he unbuttoned it. So all I'm saying is I'm likening that to, you're a Cancer. Cancers, generally speaking, are not like, here I am, look at me. You know, they're a little bit more set back. They like to view and
unless
see,
they have Scorpio rising.
but even, no, not a Scorpio. Scorpio's also like, let me sit back and observe.
Venus and Leo.
But he has this Venus, which is his attitude towards love, in the sign of Leo. And Leo's very much, here I am, don't miss me. You know, so in any case, we have many facets.
So yellow's my favorite color.
We have many facets within us, and they're not, you know, it's like we're like an onion. We have many layers. You were hiding that yellow till I called you out on it.
That's right. You called me out. Put me on blast.
I put you on blast. But that's how we are in life. And there's certain things that maybe it's familial, it's been passed down. Habits and stuff.
Again, we have about 10 minutes. What else is cooking for 2020?
Well, this Uranus that I talked about, which is the unexpected, is moving into each of the signs' houses. And that's where you can maybe expect some change, doing an about face, doing things differently. And it's in the sign of Taurus. So Tauruses, who are usually very steady, very stable, very, we always did it that way, will be people who will start to experience change in their life. And so, my advice to Taurus is go with it, because Taurus can really have strong roots, and change is,
but it might feel new, and it might feel uncomfortable to them in the beginning.
Totally. And Uranus doesn't usually ask permission. Uranus happens to you. And that goes for all the fixed signs, which is not just Taurus, but it's Taurus, it's Scorpio, it's Leo, and Aquarius. All of those signs are having Uranus in an angular house, which is the houses that are most important. So there could be changes going on in your life that you didn't see coming, that you didn't anticipate. And so oftentimes if Uranus takes something away, if you're in an experience now with, because Saturn Pluto is also eliminating things. There might be toxic situations in your life that are going away, and it might hurt initially, whatever it is, because Saturn Pluto isn't a warm, cuddly. But it's probably for a reason, and this is one of the things that astrology also deals with. It practically, as a practical astrologer, is that it's taking this away because you don't need that anymore, and you need to look in a different direction. I'm sure from the vantage point of age, which you and I have experienced, where we've been through a lot, in our lifetime. Now we have the vantage point of looking back and seeing, well, if that didn't happen, then this wouldn't have happened. And this ultimately was a very good thing for me. I think most of us see that, but you need the luxury of time to be able to look back on our life and see how significant something was,
We've talked a lot about philosophy and reflections and even metaphysics to some degree, and even physics in terms of astronomy, etc. I want to ask you, this is not a trick question, but just for a listener that, again, might, when they've heard these categories of reality from the astrology language, it might be a little off-putting because they might be unfamiliar. But how does astrology relate to race? If you pick up someone's chart, can you tell whether they identify as black or white or Asian or?
That's an interesting question, and I've never heard really any discussion on that. And I have my own. I have my own theory on it, but it's not something that anybody really discusses. And my theory is just my theory, which doesn't mean it holds any water. By
popular acclamation, I've gotten a number of people that have just called me and said they want to hear your theory.
Okay, well, actually, my theory is just simple. I think it's Pluto. I think
so. Pluto
is a black person. That's the only thing that I have. I don't have anything else on anybody else.
So a white person might be.
Well, it could be anything.
Anything else other than
yeah, and it doesn't mean
fascinating.
If I'm looking at someone's chart, I would never say, "Oh, this person must be black as Pluto." I look at it from my own chart because I have a great number of African American
people that identify as African American,
and I have Pluto, the planet Pluto, on my descendant, which is my relationships. And so simply from that, I deducted.
Fascinating.
I betcha Pluto, for me, rules that.
Fascinating.
Yeah.
Fascinating. Interesting.
Yeah.
As in terms of because I do want to have you back maybe every quarter. Again, I'm still pushing you on 2020. What's happening?
Well, like I said, 2020 is getting off with a bang. We know that, but there are many other aspects going on this year. Again, depending on how you use it in your own chart, the onus is on each of us individually. And this is a year for maybe rebooting. Like, that's the term I'm hearing now. They were talking about Oprah. Yeah, she might be rebooting her talk show. I was like, okay, I'll go with that. And so for many of us, because of Saturn and Jupiter, which is a powerful Jupiter, the good luck planet, Saturn is reaping as you have sown. If you've been doing something, and maybe this is the Renaissance time for you. Maybe this is when something big is going to come as a reward. More reaping as you have sown, though. But and so this is something that can very definitely be happening in people's charts. So you really need to keep your eye on the prize. Don't be distracted by really what's going on. I mean, you could be kept abreast of the news and this and that, but don't get sucked into it. It's not going to do anything good for your mental and your psychological, because in order to really attract positive and do our best, we need to be in a positive cycle. We need to be thinking, what good can I do? And we need to look at our own good. That's I think goes I don't think we do that enough, Tom. I think we criticize ourselves. I think we think, oh, I could have done that better. Why didn't I do this? This guy's better than me. No.
So the self-love thing is really, really key.
Oh my God. I think we all need that.
As we kind of conclude, and this might not be a question that's appropriate to ask you, Jill, but I love what's resonated in my mind is the practical astrologer thing. So my question is the impact, the emergence, sometimes we're convulsed and subsumed by social media. What does astrology have to say about this the impact of this social media meteor that has hit us, that has engulfed all of our communication styles, our relationship styles? Does any feeling in that regard?
No, I don't think so. I think it's the age of Aquarius.
Okay.
Aquarius rules, technological advances. Aquarius definitely rules social media. And so we're in the age of Aquarius.
Which started roughly around when?
Well, they're not really sure about when it started, because the age of Pisces kind of waned and Aquarius moved in. But I would say from what's going on in the world and the technological superiority that's happened in the last 20 years, would you say?
Yeah,
I mean,
so when the age of Aquarius, there were songs, there were plays, it kind of entered our common parlance. And how long will we be in this age of Aquarius, at the height of this age of Aquarius?
For hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of years.
And before that, it was the age of
Pisces.
And I think people, how you look at history, need to understand that.
Which was a whole religious thing.
Indeed, we had religious things. We had the age of the agrarian age, the industrial age, and now the age of Aquarius, which you see to be.
Yeah, and Tom.
So in some ways, we're just in the beginning.
Oh yeah, Tom, you and I can relate to the fact that when we were growing up, if the phone rang and you were running in from outside, you had to get that key in the door really quick and get to the phone, because if you didn't get to the phone, which was tethered to a wall, you didn't know who called. And I mean, just as simple as answering machines. And then, I mean, the fact that we have iPhones now, that's like revolutionary. That's your computer on a little phone. So this stuff, just think about how long ago that came into being.
Yes.
I mean, we were basically in the dark ages electronically as children. Well, not even as children,
Indeed.
As adults. When I first went to work, I typed on a typewriter.
So I agree with you totally. But as we wind down, and this is probably another discussion, but I just got to ask you this: in terms of you hear a lot of people talk about the addiction of social media, the distance, and that it's creating a chasm between how people communicate. That there are downsides to this emerging age of Aquarius. Does astrology talk about that at all, in your standpoint?
No, astrology doesn't talk about it. But as in anything else, Neptune is the planet of illusion. Neptune is also the planet of creativity, and it's also the planet of drinking and escapism of all sorts, eating, drinking, drugs. And so that can be abused. Neptune can be abused. Do you see it?
Do you see an acceleration of this abusing of the abuse?
That depends on the person. Don't you think?
On a macro standpoint, is this from if you were a sociologist, would you say that you see the temptation of this addiction is in some people? Some of my health wellness friends really are concerned about.
Yeah, totally. I mean, they've talked about how they look at people's brains and they can see that when you stay on, the computer or you play video games, that certain parts of your brain sort of atrophy, for lack of a better word. And so, yeah, I mean, astrology doesn't say anything specifically about it, but I'm saying that the way you use technologies is up to you, just like the way you use alcohol.
So in my chart, though, could you see whether I would be tempted to, for any variety of addictions, could you see whether I would have a propensity or have to be more concerned about, don't take, don't be tempted by gateway drugs?
Well, I'll just speak for myself. I have my sun in Scorpio, and it's opposed Jupiter. Jupiter, if a little bit is good, more is better.
Mm-hmm.
That's Jupiter's thing. And I love to eat. And Jupiter's in Taurus, which rules like food and the creature comforts of life. So I know for me, overeating is always a struggle.
Okay.
Always a struggle.
Good.
Trying to lose weight, forget it. You give me, food makes me happy.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
A good meal, good sticky bun, whatever. That is heaven. So everybody probably has their Achilles heel, but not necessarily everybody might have an addictive personality.
But my chart, each individual chart would indicate your Achilles heel.
It could.
It could.
It could, yes.
Well, a quick synopsis of Cancer.
Cancer?
Yeah.
Because both Harry and I believe are cancers.
All right, we got the two cancers here. Well, Cancer has Uranus, which is the planet that just moved into Taurus. It's in your 11th house of friends and networking. So there could be really a lot of surprising connections that you could be making at this point in time, or be able to get ahead through networks and connections that perhaps you didn't have in the past. And you've got the Saturn-Pluto thing that's going on in your 7th house of relationships. So initially, there might be some relationships you really just need to let go of. They may not be serving a purpose for you. You might be like, yeah, no, why am I friendly with this? Just because we went to college together. It was like, but by the same token, later in the year, you're going to have Jupiter, Saturn, and Jupiter is expansion. So let go of things, because then you're making room for new and better things to come in. So that's the word for Cancer, I'd say.
Harry, thanks for asking that. I think we're winding down, correct, Harry? I'm not sure we have 2 more minutes. So any more on Cancer, or any more on anything? How's the spirit moving you as we wind down? I want to give you the last word, Jill.
Wow, that's a big thing too for 2 minutes, but I think I really just want to go back to the fact that we are ultimately in control of our lives by the decisions we make. At times, things may seem out of control. Well, that wasn't my fault. I didn't do that. That just happened to me. Yeah, that's true. But you are in control of how you're going to see it, how you're going to
perceive and relate to it,
frame it, and how you're going to move on. Are you going to be bitter about it and hang on to that? They did me wrong. That wasn't right, blah, blah. Well, that's just going to drag out the transition to the better scenario. And so I think it's extremely important to point out that people actually do have a strong hand in what their life is going to be like. And it's by, observing, sit back, observe, try not to react, see what's happening, and then you can take the appropriate steps, and always, always look for the good in you. Because if you find the good in you, then you're going to find the good in other people. If you're critical of yourself and everything that you do, then you're going to be naturally critical of other people.
And the information you provide can kind of help you exercise that belief.
Yeah, you can just say, look, this is your strength. This is where you need to work. And oftentimes the very thing that was our weakness in our chart when we were born, because of the challenges that were dealt through life and we have to go with, are the very things that become our strength by the time we hit our 40s, 50s, and 60s.
Good point. Excellent.
So,
Excellent. Jill, thank you so much. We're going to have you back. I'm glad you're able to get away this morning.
I love chatting with you.
Well, we're going to do it again, and just to kind of kick off the 2020 20 year. I mean, yes, sir, I'm going to do some additional shows this year, but I might just have to repeat this show every between now and December, and it'll still have fruit for people. So, Harry, thank you. Paul, thank you. The whole New Haven Independent staff and WNHH, really kind of glad to be part of this team. It's not a church, but we're a communion of spirits. And also on that note, I want to thank Pastor Esau Green, who was here earlier, and please support his endeavor. And let's, as Jill has indicated, let's support one another. Let's love one another. Let's be one with one another.
Amen.
Yeah, this is my road. Lights, camera, action, I'm ready to go. Way too long, we faced them storms. Now you gon' face the dawn you waited for. I said from night to dawn, I right my wrongs alone. In competition with warnings, ice galore. Now I'm running toward them highlights. I'm finished being a quitter, but little by little, they joking, telling some riddles. Now I'm in my section, ain't willing to give up. Know you getting knocked down, but you gotta get up. I'm never gonna give up. Fall down, I just gotta get up, hey. Cause this is my road. Lights, camera, action, I'm ready to go. I'm never gonna give up. Fall down, I just gotta get up, hey. Yeah, this is my road. Lights, camera, action, I'm ready to go. Baby, you be running in my mind, read it. When you walking by me, I just wanna replay. You taking me over, the way you looking over my shoulder. So baby, come